Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Innovation Showcase Theater. Now, today we'll be looking at the topic of ensuring application availability, performance, and security with AppDynamics and Tetration. And to tell us about it, we have two great speakers with us from Cisco, Prathap Dendi and Yogesh Kaushik. First up to stage, please give a warm welcome to Prathap Dendi.
Thank you, Toby. Good morning, everyone. Let me get my clicker. First of all, I want to thank all of you for this opportunity. This has been the second year since AppDynamics has been acquired by Cisco, and it has been a terrific ride for us. It's almost as exciting as last night's game. Has anyone been to the Barcelona game last night? Quite a few of you. What a team. What a team, and if you think about their performance, that performance brings to our topic here. It has been really important in the last 10 years or so, since AppDynamics has been founded. What we've seen is the rate at which applications are innovated, the rate at which the customer experience is changing, and it's all been around performance. Can we deliver business performance at that pace of innovation that customers want to see? So we have some exciting content me and my colleague Yogesh will walk you through, but roughly, here's what we will cover. First off, what is infrastructure that is really aware of applications? All the things that are going on around our applications, whether it's IoT or mobile or voice interaction, how do we tame all of that complexity into a very application-aware infrastructure? So we're going to spend some time on that. Then I'm really excited to have a few customers talk to us about what they're doing. These are some of the digital transformed customers, the winners in their digital experience. They're going to talk to us about what they've been doing about their applications and some best practices there. And then we're going to switch into how do we focus all of that goodness in application-aware infrastructure towards business outcomes? Because at the end of the day, that's really what matters. Our line of business, our business models invest into applications and infrastructure because they want to have a better outcome and a better experience for our customers. So we're going to focus on that. And then we're going to look at some of the trends. You heard a lot in this event about the multi-cloud innovation. We'll talk about what multi-cloud is doing for applications and how is it driving the journeys of our end users even better. And then we'll close out with all of this, how do we make sure the applications are secure? How do we proactively go about the services all across the infrastructure? Yogesh will cover that. And then we'll share a little bit of best practices as we close out. So with that said, you guys know this, whether you've taken a taxi to this event or an airplane ride or maybe got some cash on the way or you went to the Barcelona game last night, the simplicity and the sophistication of applications is out there. You've seen whether it is a mobile or a voice interaction, it is seemingly very simple. But what it hides, what it really hides, and we know this in our daily jobs, is an immense scale and complexity behind the application. And that complexity permeates through every facet of our infrastructure. Whether it is simply clicking a line of code with a small interaction that's sending a lot of requests back into the database from browser to the mobile to the backend data centers, whether it's on-premise or public cloud, there's a ton of complications that we hide from the customers. And what that does is, if you are truly a company that wants to be leading the digital experience, you have transformed your applications. We've seen a lot of fracture and refracturing of applications that make it very simple. And the opportunity that's between a digital laggard and a truly transformed digital leader, the research indicates that it's about $6 trillion. And that's really the models, the business models we're seeing, whether it's the hoteling industry that's getting fractured or the airline industry that's around simplicity, that's the difference we see from laggards to leaders. And we'll hear from some of the best customers that have actually taken a proactive lead to transform their applications and their infrastructure to get there. And last but not the least, when you go through that transformation, one thing that you have to be very aware of is now there are no physical boundaries around an infrastructure. The application permeates from your edge, and you've seen some demos here around the IoT and edge case use cases. Liz was talking about it on Tuesday. There are no more boundaries for an application. The application experience comes from not only your core applications, but also your customer applications. There are thousands of API calls that go from any click that you have or any call you make all the way to the back end. And how do you go about securing them? It takes too long today. The cost of a breach ranges anywhere from $5 million to $350 million. The time it takes to catch a breach is just too large to accept. So what are we doing? What are the best practices in terms of making it much faster? And the war rooms that we all get invited to, whether you're a network operator or a DevOps person or an engineer, how do we make that experience much faster? How do we go from 1 to 2 to 3 clicks at most to make sure we quickly find where the breach has been, whether it's a performance breach or a security breach? How do we do that very quickly? And you know this construct. We've always had it. In the war room, when there is a business inconvenience, when a customer is not very happy with the performance, whether it's a mobile app or a device or a kiosk, the first thing we see now, because now the applications equal business models, we see a customer who's not very happy with us. And there we get the call, and everybody sits together and take a long time to kind of look at, where is the problem? Is it database? Never the problem. Is it network? And we know network is never the problem. And it takes hours sometimes, and it's just unacceptable. In a world where applications are released every day, where the apps are updated every day, this is unacceptable, where we have a long time to take before we actually come to the root cause of the problem. Now, what happens often is, if these teams are taking a long time, any inconvenience to the customer goes directly to the line of business. There's a ton of direct visibility where the line of business looks at it and goes, why is this happening? Why is my conversion rate plummeting? How do we quickly send a patch? All of that is very relevant to our conversation today. Now, instead of me talking to you about how we go about it and what are some of the best practices, I thought we'll bring in some customers and see how they're doing it. How are they delivering some flawless experiences to the customers, no matter what is the medium of application, no matter whether the application is coming from their deep-rooted mainframe in the back or a new serverless AWS Lambda function or a mobile app they just launched. Let's take a listen to some of the best brands in the world about how they're approaching and how the role of IT has changed in serving the business. So join me in welcoming some of the best brands in the world and can take a careful listen what they're doing.
We see the industry is changing so fast. The speed at which things operate are not like they were even just 5 years ago.
If you were to look at the market, the way the technologies are evolving and advancing with the likes of AI and IoT, the demand for performance is more important than it's ever been. We need to be leading edge.
The customers expect everything to be available 100% of the time, and they expect everything to happen as soon as they click the button.
Customer experience is your business experience now. That's how they gauge us as an organization. Within seconds, you've gone from having a little problem by one customer and it's escalated halfway around the world.
For Carhartt, relationships are a big driver in how we do business. And it became really clear that AppDynamics had that right culture to work with Carhartt, that sense of urgency and what was the art of the possible, so to speak.
Since we've had AppDynamics in place, it's created a one pane of glass experience across development and operations to truly understand what customers are experiencing and how the system is performing.
We're maniacal about solving issues even before customers notice. With AppDynamics, we could actually find these things faster.
At the technical level, it gives you an MRI of your enterprise, where you can see all those corresponding layers. We can see the cloud, we can see these services. I can orchestrate that and roll that into the enterprise so quickly.
Our use cases for AppDynamics are not just in IT. We're also using it to create business dashboards and give business insight.
With Business IQ, we were really able to put our data into one platform and one dashboard and unify how we were able to access all of it.
When you're talking about AI ops, running a world-class infrastructure and having customers rely on you for everything that they do, you have to have insights.
The insights that we can get from AppDynamics is really key to us becoming a world-class product.
If we don't have AppDynamics, it would be really like driving a car at 100 miles per hour with your eyes closed. You can't afford not having the visibility that AppDynamics provides to our infrastructure.
It's great. So, before we go into the next session, really let me summarize a few things. We heard from brands like BMW. We heard from digital-first customers like Okta, it's really around equating your business model to applications. Today, business is the application. Then how do we go about it? How do we get that visibility into the application? That's the first one. The second one is, once we tame that, how do we make sure the business outcomes that the business cares for are actually in that infrastructure, and we're protecting them both from a security perspective as well as a performance perspective. And the last one is the big migration, the cloud migration. Not just an IT investment, it really is an impactful event for the business. How are we helping IT through the migration of the cloud? So those are the three pieces that we'll cover today. Number one, how do we make sure the infrastructure is completely in line with the application changes? One of the things that we must have, and you've heard some of the customers talk about, is just gaining that visibility into the customer experience. Not the way you see your applications, not the way you've purchased a particular application, not the way you've supported the application, but really the end journeys. If it's an insurance claim or a bank purchase withdrawal, how do we go through that particular live customer journey? And whether the customer goes through a particular mobile app or stopped at your bank branch office or has gone through online completely, it doesn't matter. They're all functionally the same synonymous functions. So how do we keep an eye on it? How do we measure it closely as the same transaction then gets into the cross stack? Right? In the world of multi-cloud, it's vitally important for us, whether we use on-prem infrastructure or a public cloud or a hybrid infrastructure, as the customer goes through these hops, how do we make sure the latencies don't creep in? How do we make sure the entire end-to-end journey is secure? It is possible today. Since we last talked at the last innovation showcase, we have released, based on the customer demand, a widest range of coverage, as we call it, right from mainframes in the back end, all the way to the front end with AWS Lambda. And that's where the customer journeys are. And we have to be there to instrument every one of those moves and provide uniform awareness for the journey. The next one, and you saw David Geckler and Roland and everybody talk about this, you've asked us, when we came to you last year and announced some of the innovations, you said, look, I'm a network ops persona. I want to see the same application context that my application counterparts looks at. Before we even go to the troubleshooting and war room, is it possible that we can share the same exact data model? The highly correlated data model that AppDynamics brings for application users, can that be shared with the network ops people? And we delivered that. The ACI integration and all the way to Cloud Center and Tetration integration, now you have available. We have demos in the solution area, which we should go and see. And what this allows is, whether it is a network policy change or it is an application release, very quickly, within seconds, you can see the same context build out. If the application performance has suffered because of a network policy, you can find that out with confidence right away with a single click of a button. And vice versa. If there is a new application release and network policy is still supporting it and there is some difference, you can spot it right away and alert your counterparts on the application and development side. And doing that in the realm of multi-cloud is really, really important, because to the application user, all of that infrastructure, whether it is local, on-premise, or somewhere else, it's all the same, right? So doing that in a single control panel where the data exchange happens in all the layers is vital for all of us. Now, all of this, once we've gotten an application and infrastructure together, how do we then serve the line of business? And that's the next big topic that we want to cover. And quite simply, because of AppDynamics agents are in the stream of your code, we have the business semantics right in front of us. It's not just about number of calls and latency and the time taken for page loads, but we can also take a look at the business semantics. We can actually understand that a particular customer that starts the journey in booking a ticket goes all the way through the conversion of the ticket. What if we supply that information and say, because of this, a particular problem for a platinum customer is happening over here. So that type of visibility is available to you today. And code-level diagnostics. If you're a network user or an application user, your ability to identify that problem all the way down to the single line of code that's offending the performance within seconds after it happens is today possible through the integrations. Now, once you have it, really, this is what matters. If there's one key takeaway from this session, that's really this. which is, can you tie any changes that happen, any investments that you make in your application layer, in your infrastructure layer, back to where it really matters in real time? Can we get you fully correlated information so that you can go back to a product line manager, you can go back to a line of business and say, this is the real-time insight into what we pushed. This is how the business is actually behaving. And that's possible today. And one of the use cases that we share here is, if you're a customer and you've gone through different cycles of releases, can you actually compare that the previous application release on the left side here and the current application release on the right side here, is it actually getting better? And if yes, where is it getting better? Are the logins faster? Is the shopping cart conversion any better? So you can actually compare that as you go through your DevOps lifecycle. And that's really, really impactful. And the last one is around multi-cloud. In the multi-cloud infrastructure, as we've seen, tremendous, tremendous innovation. And what we've seen is, even though the user experience is very simple, the user experience actually goes through a lot of the stack, cross-functional stack. Can we then create a uniform single pane of glass, working with Tetration, working with other Cloud Center, CWAM, all of these products, giving you the unified correlation to that business. So that's possible today. And most of our businesses, and you've heard from some of the best brands, have invested heavily into this migration of the cloud. And within the cloud migration, can you actually tie it back to a business outcome that you invested in? So you can go back in 6 months and say, look, we did a network refresh, we did a cloud migration to AWS, or we refreshed our hardware. How is that impacting our line of business? So that's possible today. Now, if you have the full stack done, and you've migrated all of it, and your new applications are performing really well, that's not enough. You also have to be proactive about setting the right security policy and gain that visibility before it's too late with a breach. And to cover that segment, I want to invite Yogesh, my colleague, to come up to the stage.
Thank you, Pratap. Good morning, folks. It's still a morning. So what I'm going to talk about is how changing architecture of applications is driving a fundamental shift in how you secure the applications. Now, traditionally, you build applications 3-tier. You put a boundary around it. That's your firewall. Bad things don't come in because your firewall will save you. That boundary is shifting more and more to the unit of compute, which is your workload. The reason it's shifting, because your applications are everywhere. So you've heard Roland talk about it. There's nothing centered about data center anymore. It's everywhere. It's in multi-cloud. Your application is going to be in the cloud. They're going to scale elastically. So you have to take that boundary of your trust and put it all the way on the workload, all the way on the application. And that's what Tetration is. Now, protecting the workload requires multiple things. You have to understand what each of these workloads is, what it does, and how it behaves. So what Tetration does is essentially looking at a posture of security for your workloads, understanding things like, where are my vulnerable machines? Last year was the year of mega breaches, right? Apache Struts, Heartbleed, WannaCry. Which machines are vulnerable? Which workloads have not been patched correctly? What is happening on each of these workloads? Okay, they're vulnerable, but are they actually being attacked? Are they already exploited? What is happening in terms of compliance? The intent that I've defined, the policy that I've defined, is it actually working the way I expect it to work? So things like that are very, very critical. System integrity. Is somebody compromised the process that's running? So what Tetration does is takes a look at everything, provides you holistic visibility on what the security posture looks like. And we use machine learning techniques to essentially cover all of that. Second aspect, it's not just that. When you talk about workload, as Pratap was talking before, you still have mainframes, and you're going all the way to containers, and there's a lot of things in between. You have to be able to have a model that goes and works across all types of infrastructure. It has to work for workloads that are on premises, workloads that are in cloud. It has to work at large scale, any workload, any infrastructure. That's the solution you need. So that's the idea of Tetration. Now let me walk you through a journey on how Tetration achieves the workload protection of the policy. So first thing, know where you are. If you don't know where you are, don't change your policy. That could get in trouble. So first thing Tetration does, we hear it from customers all the time. What are my applications? How are they behaving? I don't want to break them. Give me a baseline. So first thing we do is define that baseline. So we use machine learning to understand what the environment looks like. That baseline is constantly reevaluated. Every 60 seconds, Tetration will go and look at how that baseline is changing over time. Are there new things? New vulnerabilities are found every day. The baseline has to have an impact on that. So how do we do that? Software vulnerabilities. We look at every single piece of software package deployed across every single workload, and we can detect in real time which of these workloads have anything that's vulnerable in real time. If you want to define a policy that says, quarantine everything that has WannaCry vulnerability from coming and accessing my database, you can actually do that with Tetration in 60 seconds. So that's powerful. Number two, how are these applications behaving? It's not just about what they are, but what their interactions are, who the neighbors are, who the peers are. If you scale an application, how do you know it's the same workload that was running here that popped up elsewhere in the cloud? So application insights essentially gives a map of your application. It gives you a fingerprint of your application. It's a behavioral model, all machine learning. You don't have to feed it a model. Tetration will discover it for you. Next thing, don't leave all your CMDB, all your system of records behind. You have a lot of rich information that's already there. You have your orchestration systems, vCenter, Kubernetes if you're going to containers. You might have Excel files that track, this is my red, this is my green, this is my blue server. All of that you should be able to take into Tetration and define what these attributes are, what these workloads are. So we allow that. We also look at who are the users that are coming in and accessing these applications. Where are they coming from? What devices are they using? Again, gives you an idea of what this application is and how it interacts with the rest of the world. And finally, what is running on the application? What is each process doing? Down to the level of a system call. We track all of that. Now, all of these things are not only tracked, but constantly computed so we can create a baseline. So Tetration will actually give you a policy recommendation based on exactly how things work today in your environment. So it's kind of like, quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, must be a duck. Guess what? It's not always a duck. Or maybe you saw the duck and you didn't want it. Most of the times, when you see the baseline, you will find things in your environment that you don't want happening. That's now you start tightening the policy or getting to the zero trust model. Intent-based policy is all about first creating the baseline and then capturing the intent from multiple users. We talk a lot about intent-based policy, intent-based networking, but fundamental difference here is that intent is distributed as well. The app developers, the business units, the security operations center, the network operating centers, they all want different things to happen based on what they control. So the model in Tetration is, well, let's capture everybody's intent and let the machine do the connecting the dots, the handshakes, the approval processes, the merging, the conflict resolution, all of that. So Tetration will constantly recompute. Think of this as a policy compiler. Capture everybody's intent on attributes, on behavior, recompute the policy in real time. Last thing, very important. We have a beautiful green click which says, go enforce this policy everywhere. Any guesses how many people want to do that? 0. Things might still break. How do I know for sure? So we allow you to test policy. In real time, with back data, you can say, I was breached 3 months ago, I made some changes. I want to see if these changes would actually have an impact and that breach won't happen. So Tetration allows you to do that. You can run experiments when everybody gives a thumbs up, time for next step. Enforcing policy, as I talked about before, your applications are everywhere. Your policy needs to go where the applications are. Taking the policy and that perimeter boundary all the way to the workload is extremely critical. That's the only way you can truly scale. So Tetration does the enforcement of policy right on the workload. We do it across all types of workload, all the way from mainframes to containers, virtualized, bare metal, in cloud, on premises, doesn't really matter. Number 2, you may still want to take a version of that policy and create a defense in depth. You may want to say, actually, I do want to put something in the network. It's still relevant for me. I still want to have a firewall. So Tetration generates this policy in standard formats and also integrates with other solutions like our firewalls. In fact, there's a booth there in Secure Data Center where you'll see how we connect the dots with Cisco firewalls, with StealthWatch, which is a threat analytics solution, as well as with ACI. Now, the last thing is that policy also needs to go into your cloud infrastructure. Well, guess what? Tetration does that as well. The open model allows us to essentially integrate with anything that does an orchestration. Tetration's goal is define the policy, understand the policy, give you multiple ways to implement that policy across multiple layers. Now, you're never done. Once you define the intent and push the policy in, you still have a day job to make sure that intent is followed all day, every day. New things are happening every single time. New vulnerabilities are found. The bad guys will always find some way around, some bypass. So what Tetration also does in real time, it actually tracks compliance with the intent that you just defined. As things happen, we track it in real time. We can also generate alerts that go to your SIM, could go to your orchestration systems, go to your network, whatever you need to do to act on that. It's an open solution that allows us to, again, integrate with our products, but also our customers, partners, homegrown solutions. So in summary, it's a solution that's real-time, highly scalable. We have customers deploying tens of thousands of workloads policy in real time. It is consumable in a very simple fashion. We have on-premises option, but actually our growth driver has really been SaaS, because a lot of our customers just want to take that off, want us to take that off their hands as well. And last, but definitely not the least, it's an open solution. Extremely important to be able to connect the dots with everything else, whether it's your infrastructure, whether it's your firewalls, whether it's your orchestration systems, et cetera. So I'm going to bring Pratap back in.
Thank you, Yogesh. All right, so thank you, Yogesh. Quick takeaways from this, right? The number one thing is about providing that uniform visibility. We heard you. You wanted a single pane of glass to look at your infrastructure, network, all the way up to application. We launched something called the Visibility Pack, the Application Visibility Pack a few months ago, and it's been quite popular. This is one single, whether it's on-prem or SaaS, it's your way to look at all of your infrastructure and applications, so you're ready to go get that call before the next war room happens. So ask your Cisco account rep for the Visibility Pack. Second one, with all of this, whether it is integration with Tetration or integration with ACI, the most important thing is to serve the business. We are now living in an exciting time of IT where we have the visibility into business even before the business wakes up to look at it. Real-time insights, highly correlated fashion, back to your line of business is the most important thing right now. And we're all enabled to do that. Let's leverage it. Last one is, as we migrate to cloud, let's go with confidence, because no matter what the infrastructure is, and no matter where the application calls are coming from, you have the ability now to control the cloud migration and tie it back to the business reasons for why, in the first place, you're spreading your applications all across the cloud. So my ask is, as we spend the next 1 or 2 days here, learn a lot more. There are demos everywhere, right, ranging from AppDynamics IoT integrations to Tetration integrations, Cloud Center, Turbonomic, all of that. Let's go spend some time in those deep dives in the sessions. There's a lot of product tutorials for Tetration on YouTube. Please watch them. There's a lot of best practices around security that are shared there. Last one, AppDynamics Visibility Pack. It's a single SKU. It's available now, and a lot of customers, and many of you here, have started using it. We're eager to learn from you. We started opening up that highly correlated network to application model. We'd love to hear more from you. So use it. Send us a lot of feedback. We would love to be back in the next Cisco Live with a lot more innovation. Thank you.